All right, everyone, welcome. It is Wednesday, August 31st. It is 89 degrees in Kitsap County. I hope that everyone is staying cool. I put out a heat advisory yesterday that should end this evening, but this weekend will still be pretty warm. So do hydrate and take care of yourselves accordingly. Look out for your pets and your children. But it's time to get going. You know what time it is. It is our conversation and housing concerns with BHA and KCR. So let's go ahead and bring our folks on. First up, we have the executive director of the Bremerton Housing Authority, Jill Stanton. How are you doing today, Jill?
Good. Sounds like I have a huge fan base out there.
Absolutely, you do. You do. And next, we'll bring on Katie Sharp from BHA. Katie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Marwan.
Thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, the esteemed Matt Garrett from KCR. Matt, how are you doing?
Wow, what an adjective, esteemed. I feel so honored.
Yeah, you know what? The crew is all here on the last Wednesday of the month, the last day of the month. How fitting. Everyone gets a horn for that. So we're going to go ahead and get into what we normally do. And when we have this special fifth week, it's like dealer's choice. But we have some updates and we want to talk about some other things. And I just want to say thank you to the folks in the audience that watch us. Oh, welcome back. Thank you there, Mr. Dent, that watch us because you have been starting to submit questions in for the folks that come onto the panel. So we do appreciate that because this is, you know, a platform where we want to have dialogue together and ask questions and get help, right? That's why it's called the conduit. So let's go ahead and get into it. We won't hesitate any longer. Yeah, how about we start with Matt because Jill was pulling up some information, and that will give her time to pull up everything that she needs to. So, Matt, you want to run down some goodness for us from KCR?
Absolutely. Well, first I've got two updates before we get into the data. Marwan, are you okay if I share the screen?
Oh man, always.
All right. So we'll start sharing here. And I know Marwan, you love not just to tell about websites, but actually show them. So I'm gonna continue. We've talked about this before, and Marwan, I think you've done this multiple times, but just want everyone to know how to actually get there to the stuff we're talking about. So the first is we have 3 case manager positions open. So we have one of our longtime case managers is moving on, which is great to work with a population that work with youth that they're a little more excited about, which is fantastic. So we have one kind of previous position, but then we're also expanding 2 new case managers, and we're really excited. This is kind of as we move forward and really expand our case management capacities into 2023. So we're really excited for this position. And these are positions that will work with folks that are at really some of the greatest need in the county. So these positions, we work with folks that are chronically homeless, individuals, maybe some families, but this is more individuals. We're working with our hotel program, working with BHA to find long-term subsidies. It's working with folks that have mental health, substance use. So it's a demanding job. It's also really rewarding, and there's a lot to do. You don't have the same day twice, and that's if you're interested in that, we would definitely want you to apply. It's a little different than our other titles. So if you go to the KCR Get Involved Career Opportunities, Marwan, are you able to see my screen right now? Is it coming through okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you go to Career Opportunities, and then we labeled it a little different. We're moving away from the Family Development Specialist title, and now this is just called Case Manager Housing. There's a long history to that, but we're trying to label a little more aptly right now. And so that's where this position is. And if you'd like to apply, you can click in. starts at 1790, and there's a description, benefits, and yeah, and we right now we would love folks if they have education, but we also really value lived experience, and so we can substitute knowledge, a lived experience for either education or case management experience. So we're definitely valuing that piece. They have to have a COVID vaccination, and you have to pass a background check. But other than that, we really want to try to keep, the traditional barriers low, because we know there's a lot of people that are really skilled at this work that maybe haven't necessarily done it in the past, and we want those folks to know, and please want to encourage them to apply.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So my question is, a lot of times folks get really terrified when they hear, oh, there's a background check. So what are, maybe it might be easier to list maybe the disqualifiers, but I'm assuming it's kind of a low bar for KCR also?
Yeah, there's some stuff that we look at a case by case, but the big ones are, you can't have any sex offenses or registered, and then typically violent felonies. Those are kind of the big ones, especially because we have kids. So we have to follow a lot of the similar background check protocols that our Head Start teachers do as well, because we're on the same site. And I think if you have questions, those are the two big broad categories. But if you have questions, we do work with a lot of folks. There's also some time. It's a little complicated to get into all the kind of specifics, but we do look at stuff on a case by case basis. And so I always say, when in doubt, apply. The worst thing that can happen is we say, sorry, we just can't. Our funding sources don't allow it. But more often than not, we can work with the folks, and we can try to figure out what's going on. It also depends on time. But yeah, there's multiple people that we have hired that have a background. And again, that can a lot of times be a benefit, right? Because that's lived experience. A lot of times that folks that are justice impacted have a lot of experience of working with those systems. And a lot of our clients are working with those systems currently. So, that can be a tremendous asset as well.
And would you happen to know if you're using like Washington State Patrol, or is it federal background checks? Do you happen to know that?
Yeah, it's just Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's just Washington State background. Mm-hmm.
And just FYI for folks, you can actually pull your background check. If you need help with that, we can actually pull it for you for free. So if you're having some trouble with that, you can contact us so you can see what's on there. Go ahead. I'm sorry to jump in there, Matt.
No, that's great. I love the feedback. Yeah, and I think we also really value in Spanish speakers. Like I said, people with that cultural competency or background in different cultures, because we serve a very diverse population. So, yeah, if you speak other languages, especially Spanish, please feel free to apply, even if you might not have that background. We often look at, we were trying to look at the totality of people's experience, and just because you don't necessarily have, if you're interested in getting in this work, I would strongly recommend applying, especially if you have some type of lived experience, with our homeless and poverty systems, that we use in Kitsap County, or even other areas, because there is a lot of value that people can bring. We have multiple folks, there's a good amount of our staff that have been through, some of them have been through the recovery world, some have been even through KCR systems, and we think that adds a lot of value. So definitely want to encourage folks to apply. Marwan, if you know folks, or Jill or Katie, and folks that are interested, or if they just want to talk, they can get in touch with myself or Brenda Johnson. You can put my man. I can put phone numbers down there in a second, Marwan. But if you're just interested in talking about the position, we're always willing to do that. We definitely want to fill these, and so we're hoping to fill these in the next few weeks.
So Matt, I had a question. How does this increase your capacity? Or is it those who mostly are clients who haven't had case management in the past, they finally get case management, or do you think it'll bring a lot of new clients on with these positions?
We're hoping this will allow us to keep, these 2 additional new folks that they're going to be geared more towards some of our higher barrier clients. Not all, it'll be a little bit of a mix. But yeah, we're hoping another 40 to 50 clients by 2023 new clients can be case managed with this expansion. Great question, Katie. Not just additional folks, although there'll be some of that. But folks that are already connected. But yeah, this is really, along with our outreach teams, our heart outreach, which we talked about, there's a lot more folks from encampments that are connecting, so it'll be some of those folks. There's a lot more folks that are newly homeless that or experiencing homelessness and that just need a little bit of assistance, right? Sometimes less than 6 months. We're seeing that a lot more coming in. And I know, Marwan, you've talked about, and I know Foundation for Homeless Poverty Management, Drayton Jackson and Diana Sullivan, they often talk about the working unhoused, right? Folks that are still having, I just heard about a case today, still working actually in a management position in a restaurant, and they're in their car right now with a young child. So those folks we're aiming to target as well with some of our rapid rehousing programs. So that's really the types of folks that these positions are working with.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then the next update, I'm going to continue to plug it. We're not going to go deep because if I'll point you to when Tony came on from KCR, our executive director, and did a whole deep dive in the community needs. Right, Marwan? There's that YouTube is up, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I won't go deep dive, but I'll just continue to plug. You can get from our website, same place, the Community Needs Assessment Survey. We have it Kurdish, Spanish, English, and I'm going to say, Marwan, do you know how to pronounce this
Tagalog.
language?
Tagalog.
Tagalog, thank you. Tagalog. So we've got 4 different languages, and please, anyone in Kitsap, we've got over, I think, 3,500 responses now, which is awesome. This is a really, really good survey. There's a lot of partners, and not just KCR. Everyone's going to be able to use this data, and so we're really trying to get as many as we can. Hopefully in the next few weeks we can get above the 5,000 respondents.
Wow. Okay. That's big. Have you guys all filled out the community needs assessment yourselves?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I'll do it. I'll do it this week.
You have time. We've got a whole other month. So we've got until the end of September to fill it out, so no one's missed anything. We've got our computer lab at our 845 site, our admin building, and we're working on setting up a computer in our lobby also. And then, Marwan, I believe we had some volunteers too that we're going to connect with to help send out. So we're, and I know the actual community needs assessment team is going to do some focus groups as well to get some even more in-depth. So there's a lot happening, and it's all good.
Yeah, and just to build on what you were saying there, the link is there, kcr.org/CNA. And if you want to watch the podcast with the executive director, Tony Ives, the link is there in the chat for you. The other thing that you can do is you can call 211 and they will fill it out for you. So you just kind of talk and they'll enter it in. And so that's one of the things that came out with the interview with Tony, which I think is really fantastic. And then one big word of caution is when you start it, you have to finish it. So you can't log back in to complete it. So do give yourself enough time to work all the way through the assessment so they can capture all of your information. So I just wanted to add those two items there.
Thank you for reminding me. I always forget. Oh, go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've been part of the bi-weekly updates with the CNA partners over Zoom. And it's so interesting how this is really, truly data-driven. They're following the data in real time and making updates to the strategy and the outreach based on the data. So understanding, the percentage response from different zip codes and knowing what zip codes aren't being reached. So they're specifically targeting events in those areas. It's pretty impressive to see all of how they pivot based on the data. But their original goal, I think, was 1,500. They got 1,000 3 years ago, and they're already almost double, it sounds like that. And it's an amazing feat to see that happening and to know they still have a month left, and that they're really focusing on these focus groups and getting those hard to reach communities.
Absolutely. Anything else you wanted to mention on the CNA there, Matt?
No, that's great. Thank you, Katie, for that follow up, and Marwan as well. I know there's always stuff I forget to mention. So, and that's awesome, Katie. I didn't realize you were on that group. That's amazing that you're part of that.
Yeah,
Katie's
they did
everywhere.
It's over Zoom. I can be anywhere, right? It's pretty impressive to see and to know that just beginning. They're following the data now, and then what they receive from that and the results, they'll be able to really take the data and analyze it and make sure it's displayed in a way that's understandable for the organizations to work off of. So I think that's just the beginning, but I'm really impressed.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And then Marwan, I know your favorite is data time. So I've got a little bit of data for our programs. Now, before we get into the data, I just want to make sure everyone knows is the wait list is still closed for KEPA. That's the KITSAP Eviction Prevention Assistance. That's our big rent assistance program. That's all takes into account all the COVID funds that have come through the county. We recently about a month ago, closed the wait list because we were worried that the number on the wait list would exceed the amount of money that we were going to get total for the program. So that's why I wanted to make sure we could fund everyone on the wait list. And that is, so far, it's going well. We're getting more data that's on there. We'll definitely be able to fund all the folks on the wait list. We've still been able to take referrals from buy and fours and our legal partners. And hopefully within 2 weeks, I can announce that we can open it back up again. There's still some numbers we're looking at, but we're definitely not going over, which is good. And I'm also glad that we didn't have to turn off the legal partners or our buy and four partners because they're definitely really, really important. And there was some talk of maybe we might have to do that in order to make sure we can fully fund all the folks that have applied. So that's good news. I know the frustration that folks can't actively submit unless they're have a referral from a partner. But we just want to be really careful and make sure we don't overextend ourselves. So that's kind of it. And this might happen. We might have to open up for again, close it, and then there might be a few stop-starts that might be coming. We will see. We also might just have to stick, once we finish this out, we might have just enough to run the buy and fours through their contract and the legal partners as long as we can. So that also might be an avenue. We'll have to see. So as soon as we've got better data, I'll definitely let people know. But I just wanted an update. That's where we are. And so I know our data team, Elizabeth and Carla, are working really hard. We've got a few meetings next week where we're really kind of diving in, looking at where we're at. So that's kind of the current update that's on the wait list. Any questions about the wait list, Marwan or Jill or Katie?
No, but it sounded like there could be a chance it might open back up. That's looking more realistic or optimistic.
It's a pathway. Yeah, there's kind of three pathways, right? So there's the first is we continue just as we are, that the wait list stays closed, but we're able to continue to run referrals from our legal partners and buy and for until we're fully allocated. The middle option would be we are able to open the wait list back up for a bit and continue the legal and buy and for referrals, So that's kind of option number 2. And then option number 3 is kind of the start-stop, as we might open up for a bit, as we kind of close out this last little bit. So those are kind of the 3 pathways forward. We're trying to keep everyone informed as much as we can, but that's just so in the interest of transparency, that's kind of what we're looking at. It all depends on funding, because we're really at the end of, we're coming to the end of our contracts, and we're not going to get any more from the federal government. The state government has allocated a smaller yearly amount, but again, that's much, much smaller. We'll talk about that when that's running. It's going to look very different than it is now, because it's probably going to be 10 to 20 people a month versus 100 people a month. So it's definitely a big order of magnitude smaller. So, all right, data time. Unless there's anything else, Marwan.
My fingers are ready. Go ahead.
All right. So in August, we sent 184 applications up to be funded. That includes duplicates, that's energy, and that's any really bill that we paid for over 1.3 million. So that's good. If you remember last time we talked about in July, it was kind of our all-time low. We were under 1 million, 154, and so this is kind of a little bit what we thought. Is we've had a few folks move on, which is great. We're also, since we're coming to the end of the program, we're not replacing staff. So we're probably going to settle into this, 1.3, 1.4, maybe 1.5, hopefully around 170 to 225 applications. So in June, 2 months ago, we were at 195 and 1.4 million. And then in May, before that, we were at 215 and 1.5 million. So definitely happy that we ticked back up, and probably July was maybe a little low because of vacation, we had a lot of different stuff going on, some people out sick. So this is probably going to be where we're going to stick at. What that means is it's going to take us a tad bit longer. So I know originally we talked about, maybe the program might, be a little shorter. I still think it's going to take us a few months into the fall, maybe into early 2023 to finally wrap everything up. The negative of that's going to take a little longer. The positive of that is that it's not such a rush. So hopefully we'll be able to advertise and get information out quicker, right? When we're spending so quickly, everything goes really, really quickly. But when it takes a little longer, we're able to kind of prepare and plan and hopefully get the information out publicly. So for August, 184, 1.3 million. So interestingly enough, we still receive from our buy-and-fors and from the legal partners, we still received a good amount of POs. So our intake was still 69 from both of those sources. Now, what we processed from the wait list was 92, which is great. Then the buy-and-fors, we still processed 29. And remember, both of those are first round of assistance. Those are folks that haven't gotten any help through the entire pandemic, or at least in 2021 and 2022. So for most of the pandemic. And many numbers again? What's that?
Give me those two numbers again. So waitlist process was 92 and buy-and-for was how many?
29. And I definitely want to commend all the buy-and-fors, Surviving Change, Hope 360, Foundation for Homeless Poverty Management, Gather Together, Grow Together, Kayak, and Mount Zion, because it is difficult. They have a lot of clients, some of which need multiple rounds, and we haven't prioritized those folks unless they are actively being evicted. So we've asked the buy-and-fors to really go out within their communities that they serve and find the people that haven't. So it's been more difficult, right? It's easier, to keep referring the same folks. So, and I think a lot of the agencies have stepped up big time, and we're still getting referrals in. The legals is still around that static 63. So we're back to 63. So we've had 63 or around that 60 mark a lot of times, and so that's what we're really comfortable with. That number, and that's kind of the folks that would be evicted. They're actually going through the system, and then we are serving those folks. There's still some evictions happening because rent assistance doesn't solve all of it, but that number has been pretty static at 63, and that's around how many per month we're also getting the amount of evictions that really need rent assistance to be stopped. So
So Matt, how do you look at that
We're
number?
here.
Do you look at that as a good thing? Like it's holding steady. If we saw it shoot up to like 150, would that be more than alarming?
That would be really alarming. Yeah. So if we saw that shoot up really high, one, that would mean there's a big spike in the evictions, right? And so that would be really tough. And then we would expect our systems, to be really taxed because, what we talked about before is a lot of these folks are not able to sustain. So some of these folks have gotten assistance, but they're still can't afford it, and now they're being evicted again, right? So it's actually a small number of legal folks that are new clients that haven't ever, so 20%. And that's a success of the outreach, and it's a success of all the ways we've connected with folks, but also it's clear that these folks really need ongoing assistance. And so, and also that probably a lot of these folks would end up now in our homeless management system, right? And eventually, for some folks, that's probably going to happen because the program's going to close out, unfortunately. And that's what we're trying to prepare for that as well. And I know, Jill and the Birmingham Housing Authority, we're talking about creative solutions of how we stop that, right? Especially because it's very clear that a lot of these folks need an ongoing subsidy. And so I know that nothing's set in stone, but we're looking at all options of how to solve this. So yes, it's not a great number. It's great in the sense that all these folks are still housed, but I'm also glad it's not higher because if it was higher, I think the problem would be a lot bigger. But there's probably, I mean, right now, about 100-ish households, that we have gotten multiple rounds of assistance, and it's kind of clear that they really need that ongoing support. And that's where the crisis response, this was a short-term crisis response. It's helping them, but it's not necessarily the right intervention. But because there's no other support, we're using it for that. So that's kind of my take of what's happening. And also a big credit to all our legal partners that are working really, really hard to negotiate and to help the folks stay in housing, and they're doing a tremendous job. Even when the landlord has other gripes, a lot of our legal folks are helping and working with them to keep the folks housed. So there eventually will be a cliff, but we're working really, really hard on a lot of different solutions to try to soften that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything there, Jill.
Yeah, this has been something we have been talking about, using vouchers, like having a preference list for these people. And actually this week, this was one of my updates, we got a new allocation of vouchers from HUD. We got 12, and Housing Kids have got 4. And they're not the emergency voucher program. They're really just the regular, they'll go into a regular pot of, our regular allocation. The difference, though, is that they're going to give us $750 per voucher in special administrative fees to try to help us cover any costs of really quick lease up. So what I was thinking about doing is using these vouchers as like a pilot program for just a very specific, targeted population that is referred into housing authority or gets on a special wait list somehow. So that's what Matt and Kirsten and I are going to talk about in September. But this would seem to me like a perfect, group to target, people that we know are going to need these vouchers for a long time, maybe even for the rest of their lives. And we say, okay, we're going to get them on this preference wait list. And then, if we have to incentivize the landlord to keep them or to use some of the $750 to pay for back rent or pay for things that, that they need to help them, we have that extra money there. So that's kind of exciting. It's a small number, but if we can be really successful, and by successful, I guess I would say have all 16 vouchers leased up within, 1 to 2 months, then I think we can make a really good case to HUD that attaching special admin fees to vouchers is really helpful in getting things leased up fast. And in addition to that, we are working, and I know I've been saying this for a while, but we do have a preference plan being drafted right now, and we're going to be taking part of that. We'll go into our administrative plan, which we will be taking to our board in September for approval. So it is moving along, and I think that that's going to go a long ways in helping us identify people who can use vouchers and can use them right now.
That's awesome.
That's a perfect segue. So that was the rest of my updates. So yeah, I'll pass it on over to Joe.
Well, you did pass it on over to Joe. So that's great. Before I go to Joe, I did want to ask a question, Matt. So
Okay.
I've got a client, and they've been helped previously before, and unfortunately, they're finding themselves behind. I think they're like maybe 2 months behind, maybe 3. What can I tell them that they should do? Because it seems like there's
Yeah, I mean,
not enough options.
yeah, it is difficult, and there's a lot of folks in this position. So we're always encouraging folks first. You know, the landlords typically they have to offer that payment plan, right, before they can do anything. So you know, what we talk about all the time, you know, don't run from the problem if you can, but try to talk with your landlord, right? Be proactive. Hey, this is what I can afford. See if there is a payment plan that can work for both parties, right? So that's the first piece. And if they can, then that hopefully will solve the issue, right? Also, if the landlord sees the client being proactive, that will also help when we, you know, if other interventions do end up being required, you know, a landlord with a positive relationship is always good. So the payment plan is the first piece, if that's possible. Now, right now, the pathway that's still open is if the landlord starts the eviction process. We are not encouraging folks to just have their landlord start evicting them to get rent assistance, right? Because it's a very labor-intensive process. It's expensive a lot of times for the landlords. It takes a lot of work, and that doesn't relationship build. So that's why we're only serving folks, you know, in this category, because things have, you know, really gone downhill. So we're not recommending, you know, them go to landlord and say, hey, start evicting me. That should only be if it's the last resort. If that is the last resort, and further, we also don't know what people's assistance level has been, right? There's still, for all of 2021 and 2022, everything's capped at 18 months. So we, you know, right, we can't really go beyond that. So that's the next thing I would say. If your client has already used the maximum of 18 months, then there's not more assistance available, and that rent assistance wouldn't be an option anyways. So that's maybe the next is try to look, you know, how much assistance that they received. And if they have questions, they can always call our front desk, and we can answer those. We can tell clients very quickly how much assistance that they use. That's in our database. So, and then Marwan, you're also flashing all the legal help, right? Is talking with legal aid. What are the options, especially if there's any issues, or if you feel like the landlord is not following the rules. That's definitely a good place to be. And that can involve a lot of different things when you actually have legal aid, or if you do have legal assistance. That could be a negotiated move out. That's an option, right? If maybe you have a place to go, friends or family, then if you negotiate a move out, you might be able, if you just move out, you could actually negotiate without having an eviction on your record, right? And we know, everyone knows how awful it is to have an eviction on your record. And the landlord might even waive, that could be part of the negotiation. Like, hey, I'm going to leave at the end of the month. They might waive and not send the debt to collections and just say, all right, you're out, right? That is an option that potentially could be viable. If there's no other place to go, as of now, again, things always could change, but as of now, yes, if all else fails and the landlord starts evicting and gives that 14-day notice, the official 14-day notice to Dispute Resolution Center, then the client, and if they have months left, then we could serve them again. But, you know, I've kind of laid out why that might be tricky. I mean, it really depends on the case-by-case basis. So I think that's what I would tell that client is there's kind of a suite of options there, from legal to potentially negotiated move out to repayment plan. And then as of now, but again, we can't count on that forever, but there is a potential if the landlord does begin the move out process for us to serve again, as long as you're within that 18 months.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And just to summarize, if you've exhausted your 18 months and then you go through the eviction process, you wouldn't be eligible for funding because you've already exhausted
Correct.
that full allotment. So I think we're going to see maybe more people enter into that category as we go further down the road. And I believe that is their scenario. One other question I had for any of the folks on the panel here is, when the back rent is negotiated, let's say it was $1,500. I know it will vary, but do we know typically what that negotiated price is? You know, is it like, give me 30% and a couple hundred toward next month's rent, or pay all of the rent and then 200 on, the month you owe previous? Do we know any kind of scenarios on that or negotiations that you've heard of?
All over the place. You're really curious what Jill and Katie have to say on this, but we've heard all over, and some folks have been really upset because they've wanted their normal rent, and then in some cases they've wanted like $800, a really high amount on top of their normal rent. So some of them are really unfair. We've heard of some being very reasonable, right? Like just 10, 15%, of their rent on top of, so a pretty small percentage, and then they pay that for a while. And also as the negotiations go, it really depends on the landlord, right? Some landlords, just because they want you out, right? And if you're willing to, clean and do all and have an orderly move out, some of the landlords are willing to, forgive a lot, right, and not go through the eviction process. And but that really depends. Some landlords don't, and depends on the property management policy. So it's very unique. We've seen a whole spectrum. But Jill and Katie, what have you been seeing from your perspective?
So I actually haven't dealt with very much of that part of the process, so I wouldn't know. I don't think that's something that we deal with as much at the housing authority, that end of it. So I can't really say.
Yeah, I haven't heard much, but we're learning from you, Matt, about, it's interesting. It's up to the landlord on that negotiated rate. And again, does it get to a point where it's more in the landlord's favor than in the tenant's favor still? That is an interesting point.
Well, I have another question that pops into my mind. Let's say I'm paying my rent, I'm on time, and then all of a sudden, September's tomorrow, and I can't pay my full amount. Do you think it'd be more advantageous for me to pay what I could versus not paying anything, just showing my landlord that I'm making an attempt? Obviously, having a conversation and saying, hey, look, I don't have the rent this month, or whatever the reason is, but this is what I can give you. I'm going to try to get the rest to you as soon as possible. Or do you hold back on all the money and just not pay the rent? And before anyone answers, this isn't legal advice, right? It's just, thoughts and ideas.
Not legal advice.
Armand told me.
Armand said to hold back.
Yep.
I think I would always advise someone to pay what they can.
Katie?
Yeah, that's we always advise people to pay that relationship building. And there's also certain landlords have an unofficial policy of the amount of money that they will actually go through the eviction process. So like if a tenant only owes $200 or something, that the landlord, might tell their property manager, I don't want to evict them for $200. And so basically, if you can keep that balance somewhat low, even if you're only making, partial payments, you might fall in. Now, of course, I don't think they're not going to tell clients that, but I do know from talking with some landlords, not all of them, but some have that. And it also makes a degree of sense, again, because eviction is so onerous and you have to get attorneys involved. So if it's a small amount, the landlord might have for you to catch up. So especially if you're able to pay the majority of rent, but not all, I agree. I think you can. You definitely get, I think, some positive vibe or at least intent with the landlord, and they might be more willing to forgive, as opposed to all of a sudden if you have a $1,500 rent that's not paid at all. Right now we're starting to be, that's a bigger deal, right? That's income for the landlord. So,
and things happen, right? You don't have all the rent, you have maybe a $500 toward the rent, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'll try to get the other money coming in, and something else comes up, and then you start dipping into that money, and then you're looking at the end of the month. Well, now I owe this month and next month, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, I would definitely advise to not only pay what you can, but also establish a relationship with the landlord. Communication is super critical. Katie, you want to add in on that?
I completely agree about paying what you can. I think about it from just a personal perspective, and you're less likely to keep letting it go. If you pay more, you only have a little bit to pay. I think it's just a safety bubble for both the landlord and you. Uh, but also, I think of, the landlord's busy. What if there's 10 people who don't pay, but you pay half? So he might be a little bit more lenient for that instead of and focusing on those who didn't pay. So yeah, putting your best effort forward and definitely having that conversation is always the best idea.
I love it. Thank you for that. Matt, I think you were done. Those are my questions that I had
Yeah.
for that. So,
No, that was great. I would just agreed 100%. I was just nodding with Katie because I think yes, that logic of, right, like, if, especially, you got to think from the property managers, they might have 20 clients, right, that, they have to deal with that have owed balances. I almost guarantee you, from my experience, they always start with the largest balance first, right? Like, that's, kind of the order of priority. So I just definitely, yep, 2 thumbs up for that for Katie.
well, good. We've never talked about this on the show, so I think it's really valuable for people to hear those strategies when they can't just pay the whole amount. So thank you all for that. Jill, okay, so what you got for us? I know you got some really good stuff for us this week.
Yeah, actually, we don't have a lot. We did do our pop-up COVID clinic last week, and I think there was a total of 7 people that came and got vaccinated, which didn't sound like a huge number, but apparently public health was very happy with that number. So we'll be doing another pop-up COVID clinic in September at one of our other properties. In conjunction with that, we did the back to school drive. We had 50 kits that were put together, and they were gone within 2 hours. So we had to make more for the other property that we went to the next day. So, we've been talking a lot about the expense of school supplies, and, all of us who went and bought school supplies were surprised by how expensive they are for what you're getting. And, then just to have them go so fast was also kind of a surprise to us. So, anyways, that's just something that we're going to keep on our minds as far as addressing what our families need for school.
You know,
Um,
I was just gonna jump in really quick. We missed your last pop-up event. But if there is anyone who is elderly or disabled that needs to get to the pop-up event, transportation is free for that. So they can give us a call and schedule that.
okay.
So yeah, I just always trying to think of ways to
Yeah.
help folks out. And it's like, oh man, wait, people would get free transportation for that particular service. So yeah, I'll send some information on how they can set that up.
Okay. That'd be great. That'd be great. Okay. So I just told you about the new vouchers that we got allocated. So we're excited about that. And hopefully, I was going to ask you, Matt. So these people that are the households that are not going to be able to be assisted because they've already got their 18 months and they are facing eviction. Do you have any idea like how many people fit into that group that you've been dealing with?
We think right now, talking with Emily, I think that's between like 50-ish and 100. I don't have the
Okay.
exact, but that's the rough numbers that I have, because basically what Emily has told us is that each month it's about 80% of the folks have gotten assistance, at least once with us. So these are folks that are right in this category. So our rough math that's around them, we could try to get some more accurate numbers if we actually do some investigation, but I think it's probably within that range.
And is your feeling with these people that if they had a voucher, they would be able to stay in their homes?
a lot of these are it's rent assistance. Yeah. Again, we could do. I think we could do some more in depth, and maybe I'll have for our meeting in September. I can do some more investigation. But that's at least what our navigator that works with the legal folks. That's I had a few conversations with her, and that's what she's reported.
Okay. Because if we could start with those people, at least with these new vouchers, that might be a quick way to address at least some of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other than that, let's see. We're in our budget season right now, so everything's been all about coming up with our goals and our strategies and our initiatives for the year and putting this budget together and meeting with the board. So that's kind of been on the top of our minds. But I can't think of any other updates. Katie, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about Ready to Rent, and didn't go to the podcast last Wednesday. And I definitely was going to mention it there, but I got to mention it today. So September 15th, I think, is the first class for Ready to Rent. And we have over 15 signed up so far. I don't know the exact number, but our Ready to Rent is our renter education classes. And they're completely free to the community to help support, your housing search and being more able to apply and get approved for housing. So if you want to put that, do you want to put that page up there again, Marwan?
It's right there.
There we go. This is the page on our website. It's bremertonhousing.org/ready to rent. And what it does is it kind of walks you through what each class is about. And then if you'd like to register, the registration link is a button that just says register now, and it takes you to the Eventbrite page so you can quickly and easily sign up to take the 6 classes. It's 6 classes once a week for 6 weeks. So it is a commitment, but it will get you so much knowledge in navigating this very difficult housing market. So if anybody's interested in joining, or if maybe a case manager is interested in learning more and taking the course, it will be downtown Bremerton starting on September 15th.
Matt, you may not be able to answer this, but there are activities sometimes that clients at KCR need to participate in. Would this qualify as one of these activities? Or could it?
Yeah, I think it's really only one of our programs right now that has, and I believe you're referring to the financial classes as part of our COC program, and that is an awesome program with Bremerton Housing Authority, where clients are part of either our transitional units or get rental assistance in the community for 1 to 2 years, and then as long as they're in good standing with the program and with their landlord, and they've completed some financial classes, they're actually eligible, depending on voucher availability, for a housing choice voucher. That's actually a select few. So that is specific to financial. So I don't think that would qualify for this, but we are encouraging our clients to attend this. And I think a few case managers are actually going to take some clients there. So we're hoping that this will be a big benefit. But I think, most of our programs do not have that requirement. And again, it's not a requirement to participate. It's really to be eligible for a housing choice voucher, which is an amazing program. And many counties don't have that connection to the housing. So big credit to BHA. And we've seen a lot of success with that. But no, I don't think this would quite count.
Gotcha. Well, I encourage you to sign up for this. I couldn't sell this more myself. I think this is a fantastic opportunity. Just like the things we were talking about earlier, should I pay half the portion of the rent that I have? How do I talk to a landlord? These things are huge as you go forward, and you're building these skills and helping yourself or family or friends. Please pass this on, because you're very likely to definitely use the things you're going to use in this class, and more than once and quite a bit. So, this is really awesome. Go ahead, Katie.
We are excited, and Lori is is getting ready, and it is a lot. Like I said, I think it's 2 hours every week too. But please, if you need to, email landlord@bremertonhousing.org, which is Lori's email. If you're interested but really just have some questions, I will put this here.
I've got it up there.
Oh, do you have hers? And then she will be able to answer any questions. I know it feels like a big commitment, and it's like, do I sign up? Do I not sign up? But she's definitely willing to answer questions and be flexible with makeup courses if you can't make one of the classes. But we really want you to have the information. So thank you so much for you all for sharing it. I think it's going to be really exciting. The first time the Bremerton Housing Authority actually did this course was after we converted West Park to Bay Vista, or in that time when everybody was relocating, so we could turn it into the new construction. So it was really successful then, and lots has changed since then in finding homes, especially technology. So I think Laura's updated it a lot, and we're ready to see who comes and to really share this time, and hopefully we'll have more courses in the future. So
That is awesome. Can I also just add one other thing that is on the BHA website that I think we mention it from time to time? But if you're looking for affordable listings, this is posted also on the Bremerton Housing Authority page here. And this is updated August 25th. So it is updated, looks like at least weekly. And you can come and search by bedroom here. Look at all these one bedrooms. Look at all these two bedrooms. So if you're like, man, where do I even start trying to find a space that's gonna, fit myself or the needs for my family, this is a great place to take a look and start. So
I'm
what do
glad
you
you
think?
mentioned this though, Marwan. I was thinking of bringing this up as well. Lori maintains this because she noticed that, how do I get information out about units that are affordable? I mean, you can go on Zillow.com and you can look for rentals, but it doesn't mean that they're affordable rents. So she does a quick search and adds them to this listing. Sometimes landlords call her and she posts those links here too. So this is a really helpful starting point for affordable housing search, not just housing, but that it's somewhat affordable. It's really based on our voucher holders' payment standards, but these are open to anybody. So we really wanted a way to provide somewhere to start.
Yeah, I think this is also again a great resource because it's very stressful and you got to take some time and do research and things hit the market and they're gone really quickly. So to put all this in one spot for you is fantastic.
I will definitely let her know. My other update is, I know when I was on 2 weeks ago, it was right after the coalition meeting, which I think our podcast ended up being like 2.5 hours long or something. So as you watched from the beginning, I had introduced that we were moving to MailChimp. So the coalition is trying to get news out through email service called MailChimp, and we sent our first one last week. But if anybody was there and they didn't get the email, or if they just want to sign up for our mailing list, I can add that information to the links. I can send that over to you right now. I could show you kind of what was shared in the last email. Marwan, did you get the last email?
I don't know if I did. I actually don't recall, so
Oh.
I don't think I did.
Let me see. Here, I'll send you the sign up form.
Okay.
Let me see. So maybe you can sign up for our mailing list.
I will.
Let's see. Here's the link. Did you get it, Jill?
Yeah, I got it. And I'm going to have to run because I have a 4:00 meeting, but it's good to see everybody. And if you want to talk about the social housing thing, we could do that in the next podcast.
Okay, we'll absolutely do that. Can I ask you one question before you go that was in the chat? It says, do we know the share of rentals belong to, say, one owner or corporate or property management?
I
That was
don't know
another
the answer to that question. Lori probably would though. We could talk to Lori. We could ask Lori.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that.
All right. Good to see
Thank you, Jill.
y'all. Okay. Bye.
All right. So if you don't mind, Katie, if you could just pass that question on to
Yeah.
Lori. All right, so here I am at MailChimp, the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. Things will autofill for me, which I love. My email, which again, Marwan Cameron at Gmail. First, last name, my organization. Oh, which one do I want to go with? So many choices. All right. Is your organization? Well, I actually have to put I'm not sure. We actually applied. So I don't know if we've been accepted in yet. So I'll just put I'm not sure
Yeah.
and
Let's see.
subscribe.
Then confirm.
Confirm. Well, let's see here. I am not a robot. All right, that looks pretty good there. And looks like I'm done. And now I can continue to the
Yeah.
website where I can manage preferences, email a link. Yep, pretty good to me. All set. And then just while we're here, you can get all this great information. And they put the link to the live broadcast right here. So if you can't, make it or you want to watch it later, I think it's going to be posted there. And there's a ton of information here on the coalition. So energy assistance programs, building 10, facing eviction, utility assistance, Pendleton Place, Northwest Hospitality, uh, pandemic information. So this really is a one stop, and this website is just being updated constantly. Northwest Justice Project, employment and education, some files coming soon. If you're looking for meal times in Kitsap, so really trying to make a one stop for all your needs. So please do bookmark this and sign up for the MailChimp.
Yeah, and so we're hoping to get the page updated more, especially right now. I don't think it has the sign up form on it, but we're getting to that point. But if you do have any questions or if you want to share any resources, our new email address is admin@kitsapphc.org. Please email us and we can give you some information, get you the sign up form link, or share your resources that you.
That is fantastic. I really appreciate you going into that info there. Now, there was some questions that we had, and there was so much good information that Jill had to go. So I might make her go first next time so we can get to it. But what we'll do is if Katie can't answer these questions now, I'll ask her to submit those to Jill, and if I get a response before next week, I'll come on and I'll do a special show with the answer so that folks have it because I don't mind doing stuff like that. But the questions here, let me just kind of get to those there. Was in regards to does Jill and the Bremerton Housing Authority know about the initiative I-135 in social housing that is taking place in Seattle? There's an article here that I'll pull up that talks a little bit about it. And this does seem to be a really powerful way to expand housing here in Kitsap County. And so Seattle's Social Housing Initiative gets enough signatures for the 2023 ballot. That's a big deal. And so my question is do either one of you know about what social housing is? Do you know anything about this ballot? Does it make sense for us to pursue something like this here in Kitsap County? What are your thoughts?
From what I've read on that article is it's very complicated. Like I don't have enough information to speak on it at this point, but it is very interesting. The organizations that are for and against it, and I definitely haven't done the research yet And I know Jill was, and she did have some comments, but I think it'd be best to ask her, but it's just something on our minds.
Matt, do you know anything about this initiative I-135 here and what
Um,
social housing?
just, just, just a little bit. So um, I think there are some other places, some European counterparts that use this model. I think some of the critiques are there is existing, there's the Seattle housing, right? There's housing authorities, right? There's public housing authorities that fulfill some of this role. And so are you duplicating? I think that might be some of the critiques, right? I think funding is clearly an issue. So anytime there's raising more funding, that's a positive. But I would want to learn more about the existing structure because you don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? There's a lot of good work that housing authorities are already doing, and a lot of development is happening. So now, clearly, there needs to be more, and so I think that's probably what some of the initiative is trying to spur as another agency. But I definitely would want to learn more about the structure of it before commenting yay or nay if it's a positive or negative. But I do I do like out of the box solutions, and I do like um, uh, ideas that haven't been tried before because it's such a big problem. So I am, if it does pass, I'll be very curious to see the success and if it works, and then how it integrates into the existing systems. It's something it's something that there's so much bureaucracy. And there's so many folks that are doing stuff in a specific lane and that are isolated. And so I do think it's something to always be aware of, is the duplication of efforts. But that's why you're here, Marwan, right? You're helping us unduplicate, unsilo, and I think it's a project all of us need to be thinking through, because this problem touches so many different sectors. So yeah, well, for me, the verdict's out, and I would love to hear what Jill has to say and other people that have looked into it more. I've only just read a few articles about it, so I'm definitely not informed.
So we will send that over to Jill. There is a website here, www.houseourneighbors.org, that goes a little bit into it. It's like the 101 of what social housing is. I'll just pull that up so people can see what that looks like. So this goes into Initiative 135 and the endorsements and saying yes. I There's some videos here that you can watch. I'm not super clear on it, and so I don't really want to give an opinion because I think I would just muddy it up. But I did have a podcast a while ago, and I had some folks that were involved in getting the signatures and advocating for this. They actually came on and spoke about it, along with one of the candidates running for. Um, oh, what is that? The tall gentleman's name? Kilmer. I don't know why I want to call him Val Kilmer. He was not the Batman, but Derek Kilmer, running for Derek Kilmer's position. She was a big social housing person, so she came on, and some other folks from Tacoma and Seattle to speak about it. So if you want to hear from their own mouth and their perspective, you can check out the link in the chat. They came on to the conduit. But so I will leave it there. So I just don't want to misspeak on there and then say that's not what social housing is at all. What are you talking about? So it's just better for me not to give an opinion on that. But man, always such a really good hour. Usually we go over, but this was jam packed. Definitely good to see you guys.
So much stuff. It was great.
Now
Thanks,
the last
Marwan.
thing the last thing that I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about is and I think you already kind of have a heads up as to what we're doing. At last week's last was that last week, Matt? That seems like was the
Yeah, it was.
breakfast last week? Wow.
It was
That
last
seems like
week.
it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I've done like a whole bunch of stuff in the last week, so that it seems like a long time ago. But in that, what we are trying to do is get all of the stakeholders together in the same room and discuss the needs on ML King and meet during the next pancake breakfast and create work groups and really be solution oriented and try to figure out what we can do. And Kirsten Jewell, there could be some pilot money if whatever the solution could be. I don't know how much it is, but we would need to have some solutions for her, and some folks from City Council are interested and have committed to being there. And so what we have seen is there's a lot of people that are working on this, and they're all great people, right? But everybody's not in the room. So we're trying to do something really big and try to be as inclusive as possible and get everyone in the room, but all focused on solutions and not pointing fingers and saying, well, you didn't do this and you should have did that and why this and why that. It is what it is. How do we fix the situation as much as we can until things like the Rejuvenation Center open? And New Day just had their ribbon cutting, and they do a lot of really fantastic programming and are expanding their food program and Food Not Bombs, and just all these folks are just kind of coming together, and the prayer walkers and just everyone BHA. Just there's a lot of awesome people that really care about the folks that are on ML King, and just trying to come up with those what can we do, right? Is there a way to have bathrooms or showers or hygiene assistants or dumpsters or whatever that case may be, knowing that the goal and the dream is housing, but we can't get that. What can we get in the interim to be as humane as possible? And Katie, you missed the breakfast, so that's what last week was about. And so my idea was to have folks come in. It would be a half day workshop. So instead of a 2 hour breakfast, it would be, kind of a half day, like a conference basically. And G2 would feed everyone as usual. And depending on how it goes, we might actually change from breakfast and go with like barbecue pulled pork sliders and some cilantro tacos. And, Stephanie might really kick it up a notch with some chocolate mousse and whatnot. So we might make it really fancy on that day. But what we wanted to do, Katie, is kind of have folks come in, and instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Marwan Cameron. I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together," I would just state my name and my agency and just say, this is what we've tried, this is what works, and this is what hasn't worked from our perspective, so that everyone in the room is on the same page and we all have kind of a common language. And then break into work groups, whether folks are online or not, and have the breakout rooms for Zoom going on for folks that couldn't be there to work with folks in the room, and then try to solve some of these issues. So how could we get bathrooms downtown? How could we get a dumpster downtown? How do we get funding for that? How do we get volunteers? How would that work with having the volunteers? Um, and then coming back after maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes of being in those work groups, and then sharing it back out to everyone. And then the powers that be, the decision makers and the purse holders, which would be probably the mayor and city council and the county, seeing what could be done and what can be implemented, and then hopefully create some relationships. And I know that's uh, Matt's talking about duplication of effort, and I don't think KHHC is doing quite that, but we're hoping that we can build on all the synergy that that organization has, and just kind of pull people together. And the people that seem to always be missing from these conversations are the actual people that are living in ML King, either as experiencing homelessness, sleeping in their vehicles, or even the renters that are in the surrounding areas. So I just want to get your thoughts there as I kind of unpack a mouthful there for you.
I think it's great. I don't know if I'm qualified to be there. It's just not
Sure you
something
are.
it is the most interesting thing, and it's right behind our building, our 600 Park building. We have a parking lot, and then there's MLK way there. But I know that like the city council, the people who were at our last coalition meeting, the two city council members, Jeff Coughlin and Anna, can't remember her last name, but I know they would really like to be part of these conversations, because I think that's it. I think what are the solutions? Like, we can all come up with the problems, but nobody can come up with like the known solutions. So just being part of that conversation from the beginning, I think it's a great idea to have a workshop on it. I hope I hope they could all make it. I hope you can get the word out to get everybody there that should be there.
That's the plan. I mean, Diamond Parking, the Marvin Williams Center, Salvation Army. I already talked with the captains, and so you should see them on the conduit here soon. As soon as I schedule that, so they've agreed to come on, which is awesome. Also, a note: while it is hot, Salvation Army has asked if you're going to drop off water. That's great and awesome, but sometimes what happens, people that are well intentioned put the water out, but it's super hot outside, so then people end up consuming really hot water. Just bring it into the Salvation Army, and what they'll do is they'll take it and put it into their coolers, and then they'll put cool water out for folks that are outside. So please do bring the water, just don't drop it off on the corner. Bring it inside so that they can exchange it and put cold water out. So just an updating note. And Matt, you maybe have had a week to process that, and then me running it down there. What could be some most efficient ways for us to kind of work through managing all of these voices and staying on task of being in the solution? Because that is definitely going to be a challenge, right?
I think you got your work cut out for you, Marwan. I heard you got volunteered as mediator. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of tactics, right? We could, we could send some surveys out ahead of time, right, to try to focus in on what people really want to talk about, right? And I think keeping it solution minded, and we can, if we're talking, because you're right, I do think there is a place to hear the laments, right, of different people. I just think this might not be the venue, right, because you want actual actionable solutions out of it. So I think trying to set the ground rules of like, this is not the place to lament, and there is, right, there's lamenting is an important piece, but this is just not it. And I think if we really dial in on the different groups of like what resources can they lend, and then we can maybe hear from some of the bigger stakeholders of, here's some news, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need, and then folks can kind of come back and say, this is what I can offer, this is what I can offer. And because that to me seems what the value is, right? Like, so for instance, a lot of times what folks might want is, if we do find the money, how are the bathrooms going to be operated, right? So can there be volunteers 24/7? Can some of the other agencies, right? So that would be a match where you can have some maybe funding from the county match up with volunteer staff to actually make something run, right? And so that's just an example. I'm not sure if that's even feasible. There's a lot of issues, right, with bathroom. We've already heard some with you have sharps concerns, right? You have supervision concerns, and also the costs. So that just might be an example of where I see the value of a whole kind of community-wide approach, is where can people step up to offer solutions. So that's my 2 cents, but I also know these things are really difficult. You have a lot of folks that are passionate, and I love inclusive. It's great, but also there's a huge diversity of opinion, and I think managing that is going to be a challenge. But I think if anyone can do it, you can do it, Marwan. This is, I think, this is your time to shine.
I love challenges. And, to that end, we just, we're having conversations about this over the last week. And maybe what should happen, like we're trying to operate from a sense of urgency, right? The pancake breakfast isn't until the 4th week of September. Folks are going to have to go back, talk about what came up in those meetings, do the research, find the funding, and then if it's buying something or renting, a porta potty, whatever the case may be, that's going to take time, and the weather will already be turning. At the same time, we want to cast a wide a net, as wide a net as possible. So maybe we need to push it until the middle of October or the 4th week of October, just to ensure that every voice is at the table. We're able to send out those surveys. I literally just had this conversation last night. Send out the surveys. Let the individual organizations answer those questions. So we already have that information beforehand, so we can share that information out. Like, hey, this is what happened with the porta potties over here. This is why this didn't work. And then people can think about the solution instead of hearing it firsthand. And in the interim,
2 thumbs
Yeah, you
up.
like that? Okay.
Yeah. I think
then
having a little history of like some of the issues and guardrails would save tremendous amount of time, right? Because basically you're going to have Kirsten from the county explaining all the stuff that we've done in the past, right? And all the issues and what. And if we can shortcut that, then you really maybe can have a solution or a smaller group, right? And maybe what comes out of this too is just a kind of like another committee that really is focused, that we've identified the players, right, of who's actually going to commit resources, and then they gather. But I love that of like getting material out ahead of time of the guardrails. I think that's a tremendously good idea.
Sometimes you got to slow down to go faster, right?
Yes. And we'll save a ton of time, I think, getting everyone on the same page, right? Of like, these are the parameters. We can't go this way. We can't go this way. This is what we need, right?
Yeah, I even thought if I can get that information back, that I can even put the answers in short videos where folks
Yeah.
can watch like 2-minute vignettes on, hey,
Yes.
this is the history of what, Kitsap has done with porta potties,
Yes.
or yada yada yada. And it's like, boom, I'm fully caught up. All right, now how do we solve this? And then so my thought was, Matt, is if we are going to push it till October, then maybe at the next breakfast, then we do make the panel for those that haven't had a voice to speak, right? And so they would have the stage, and BHA, KCR, city council could come, folks can come and listen, and let the folks that are experiencing homelessness, and maybe even the renters that are there, come and have their voice heard, so that when we do have the conversation, they've been heard already, right? And then we know what their concerns are from their point of view, because again, they're not typically in the room when we're trying to solve these problems, and it concerns those individuals. And so then we're still having momentum. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I think there's it definitely should be intentional in some thought. Like maybe if maybe it's not everyone, but maybe it's just we have one space for folks that are actually experiencing or on the advocacy side, and they have a day to lament. You have maybe some folks that are on the other side of the issue have a different day, right? I don't know. I do think spaces for lament can be really powerful, but we definitely want a space where people feel safe, and I think you do that really, really well. But just might be something to think about. But I do think that would be great, and then it's recorded, and then people can view that later, right? To really hear, and then the solutions meeting is just that, solutions, that we don't, we aren't, the precious time that we have all together, right, where is not consumed with people that really need spaces to talk about the pain and the suffering, and bearing witness to that is super important. But I do think that's a really good idea, just with the caveats. I might want to think about what that looks like and how to make that safe, safe for folks who want to participate.
And there are a lot of concerns from their side also. So, I'm super flexible because I want to be in the solution. And maybe no one is there and it's just audio and no cameras, because there was some concerns with, folks that are experiencing homelessness being identified either, for DV or issues with the police, so that way they can still have their voice heard, but they don't have to fear potential reprisal or attack. So that could be done. Or maybe they may want to invite certain organizations that they would be comfortable with being in the room and hearing. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, because all of it needs to be done, right? Like everyone needs to be together in the solution, but also the voiceless need to be heard at the same time. And I think we can pull that off here on the Conduit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of thought of regarding what people are comfortable with. Maybe some folks will show up who don't want to be on camera. Maybe we have advocates on camera, right? Or maybe we have you on camera. Maybe because I do think seeing people's faces is powerful, but definitely not if anyone's uncomfortable, and have options all different. Even if someone's speaking on their behalf, if they don't even want to be here, but they want to write something. I think there's a lot of ways to communicate that and to maintain, or have folks not be identified, and maintain a sense of, being anonymous while still participating.
Yeah, I think the thing is trying to center, the folks that are being impacted and still making it an effective, worthwhile endeavor to
Yeah,
move forward. So, and maybe I can even get some of my facilitator folks, buddies, to come and help guide that conversation, and I can just
yeah,
host,
yeah,
to kind of navigate that because I'm definitely not trained in that. So to have someone
yeah.
professional in that capacity that can use the language and kind of work through that would be great. I don't know how much you miss Katie, but Matt loves it.
No, I think it's exciting. It sounds like you have a few things to work out. But the idea is just doing it. I think even within an organization of like 90 people, the idea of having cross team collaboration is a lot more difficult than it sounds. And that's the ideal, right? To get everybody's voices heard and things like that. But people stray away from it because you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it right, and then you don't know what the next step is. You can't promise everything, but who's going to make that next step? So I definitely would support anybody who's willing to make that happen. And I think it's nice that we have a specific point of reference that we want to help, because I think those solutions could probably be used in other areas once we kind of identify what would work here. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so stay tuned, everyone, for that. Like I said, it probably will happen sometime in October, the big one where we all do the collaborative, and I'll work on my team to, kick it up a notch from pancakes to, some of G2's more signature items, and
make sure
we'll
there's
work
a spinning wheel and prizes too. Why not? It's a
on willing
conference.
prizes. All right. I will take that to heart, and really make it. I was like, all
Make it
right, there needs to
engaging.
be
Yeah, make
icebreakers
it
and
engaging.
absolutely. I was actually looking at bingo on Zoom last night. So,
Mm-hmm.
very like-minded, Katie. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I want to give who wants the final word this time? I think you guys both defer to the other person, so it's just very interesting. Very selfless. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. It's you, Matt.
Uh, I'll end with this is we definitely appreciate we've talked about we were just talking about this huge community wide effort, and I think it's really easy to be cynical, especially in this time because the problems are so big. But really, with the conduit and what a lot of these advocacy groups are doing is there is a place for everyone if they want to participate, and even those small things add up big time. I was just talking, through the pancake, we got some volunteers that are going to go door to door and actually do some surveying for the community needs assessment. And that's something we just can't do right now. And it's only going to take a few hours for them and going to make such a big difference. And if all those small things add up. So there is a place really for everyone to be involved. And I think Marwan does a great job of organizing those folks. So thank you, Marwan.
Shout out to BHEA, Katie. I don't know if you know that group. The Bremerton Housing and Equity Advocates are now under G2. So that group has come under us, and they're
Whoa.
for uh, housing and homelessness. And MLK is their focus right now. But as these things get resolved, they will expand their vision and focus. So yes, they are going to go uh, and do some door to door and sit with folks and complete the community needs assessment. And that really came out of Tony coming on and talking about it and going over the zip codes, like you said, Katie, and 98337 is underrepresented. And so that's how coming together, that's how things happen. So really fantastic. And
Love
Katie
it.
is speechless. All right,
No,
everyone.
I'm just listening. I don't want to have the last word again. Matt had the last word.
Ah,
We always have a conversation after the last word. I don't know if you can call it the last word, but
that is true.
I appreciate that. That's exciting about BHA, and I'm looking forward to knowing more.
You got it. All right, everyone. For Jill Stanton, and Katie Sharp. Matt Garrett, I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit Network. We will see you next Wednesday. All right. And again, there is no city council meeting tonight as it is week 5.